Hey everyone, if you like combat sports, martial arts, especially Kyokushin, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to both the Drewsperience and the Kyokushin Shuffle and KRT as we all try to raise the bar of Kyokushin as Sosai Masoyama wanted. And with that, this is the Drewsperience, the show that's 80% combat sports, 20% everything else. So yes, I gave the names of 3 people before, but I just want to say the show doesn't happen unless we're all working together to raise the bar. First, the show is brought to you by KRT Tips and Tricks, where Wesley Jensen and Darren Stringer are bringing together all the minds of every stand-up martial art, whether Taekwondo, Kyokushin, karate style, any other karate style, during the times of the pandemic to become the largest growing online dojo worldwide. KRT Tips and Tricks, raising the bar of martial arts, no matter the discipline. Also brought to you by Kyokushin Shuffle podcast and Forever the Student ebook by Sensei Pat Pinto, where he picks the minds of Kyokushin's greatest ever, or kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, you name it, just to see how they excel at their craft. His ebook is available online for purchase, and please subscribe to, if you like Kyokushin and also martial arts, Kyokushin Shuffle is an A1 podcast that I would always recommend. So, and one more, Moments Management, where they will teach you about the fight game, how to manage your money before, during, and after your fight window, where Nima Safapur and his team, who represented Alex Gustafsson, Gegard Mousasi, amongst others, will make sure to understand how it is to be a fighter for before, during, and after. Moments Management, where care and quality come first. But tonight, it's more important because I have a return. Sometimes, I like to have returns on my show. And it's the man himself. I mentioned him already 2 times now, so you'll probably get some subscriptions. I'm very glad to welcome back Pat Pinto of the Kyokushin Shuffle and Forever the Student. Us, Pat.
Us, mate. Hey, well done. Since we last spoke, and I, reinforced a little bit behind the scenes, and we stay in touch and keep doing what you're doing, brother. It's fantastic. You're doing a great job, mate. Well done. And thank you for your continued support in mentioning the Shuffle and the Forever the Student ebook. And again, we're just loving what we do, and your passion just comes out so cool, man. So well done.
Thank you. No, I mean, look, as mentioned, it always it's like when we first interacted, like even before, it was kind of like we had to get to know each other. But the biggest thing, the most rewarding thing is when I do these discussions is when the guest says, yeah, I'm going to come back. You let me know when you want to come have me back. And to me,
yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Oh, it's more rewarding than anything.
Yeah, it is, and it's the mateship side of it that blokes like you and I just want to encourage, that positive energy, and it's contagious, as I say, and if some don't want to catch it, all good, all power to them, but the ones that want to, even better.
Oh, exactly. So since our first conversation, I think the first one was 45 minutes. Now it's going to be just a bit longer, like 50 minutes to an hour, as mentioned. So it's still good either way.
That's cool.
It's still good. We always have quality. So Pat, you have a new book coming out. I know it's been in the works, and it's going to come out soon. And not only that, your podcast is expanding from Kyokushin to other disciplines, which is amazing to see. So what went into it? Let's start with that. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, again, I may have shared it last time briefly, but after the Forever the Student conversations, the target was for 50, and was so blessed to get the guests I got. A main priority was Australian targeted to just continue that demographic of audience. But then I sat on it over Christmas and New Year, and then we were holding tight that things were going to get back to normality, and it did here in Australia and in Melbourne. And then I have a massive passion for coaching even in my teens. I was fortunate to be coached by some heavy hitters here in Australian sport, and then my own Shian, typified that as well in karate. And then that's where it triggered. I was starting to see that there was an angle here where a lot of coaches meaning all coaches, irrelevant to discipline, have so much knowledge. And when I was doing the Forever the Student, a lot of people were acknowledging the nuggets and the content and the cool, philosophies and ways that others were thinking. And then I'm like, well, the coaches are another beast altogether. And in Australia, we have a pedigree at the minute of ex-UFC and one champion, all these legends in their 40s and 50s, I'd say at the moment, that are not competing anymore and are coaching. And we're just letting them just sit wherever they want to sit and run their own schools. And that's where I'm fortunate to know some of them and most of them. And I've got an opportunity to talk to them at a bar or a coffee, over a coffee, but it was time to get them to share bits and pieces of their coaching vernacular and their language. And so far so good, you know, and I'm just tipping at it at the minute. And there's some real cool special guests that I've got, you know, coming around the corner as well. So that's where it got to. And then again, my passion in not being able to go to ex-UFC Anthony Perosh, who I had last week. I can't go to Sydney, you know, off a drop of a hat and go train with him, you know, and get the luxury of understanding some of his, I use the word language, you know, his theories and concepts. So what better way than to have a chat? Sure, we can't apply some of the certain, you know, methods and tactics, but principles and etiquette and respect and Budu for us Kyokushin guys, I can feel that energy with certain guests that I have on.
No, it's really good. And what I liked about Parash is he's a Carlos Machado Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. So, like, yeah, you want me to repeat it? Look, what I said is what I liked about Parash is he is under Carlos Machado Jiu-Jitsu, and I think that's really good because we all talk about the Gracies. You know, it's nice to have Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not saying anything bad, but Carlos Machado taught Chuck Norris. That's a big deal for pop culture and martial arts.
Yeah, you know, they're fascinating stories, you know, from Anthony, Coach Parash, Anthony, and even John Will, for listeners that follow the Kyokushin Shuffle, jump on John Will. And what I mean by that is because he was one of the first to bring jiu-jitsu to Australia. Mm-hmm. And of course there's, you know, certain people that did and brought it here and not, but he was one of the first in respect of being taught by the Gracies to begin with. And then the Gracies, and all respect to BJJ people listening, I'm not familiar with all their names thus far, but what John was saying that he's one of the Gracies then said, oh, look, I've got to go somewhere and teach somewhere else. Sorry, I can't do the one-on-one with you today, but here's my cousin. And it was one of the Machados. And then he directed him to that angle. And then that's where that blossomed. So that there's a good heritage here in Australia with the Machados as well.
It's really insane. And, you know, the last time we were talking about Australian martial arts, and I always keep saying, like, we all like to think of like the hot spots of martial arts. So obviously Brazil, North America, Japan. Yeah. But I think Australia, you know, you think of Australia, like there was Richard, who's the actor? You posted him on
Richard Norton.
He's a very accomplished martial artist because, like, and I even commented on the pic. I'm like, this man was in Mr. Nice Guy with Jackie Chan, and it's like, do you remember that film?
Yeah, well, I had Richard on. He was my 50. I was saving Richard as my 50th guest, as my little last hurrah for Forever the Student. So, in dropping, you know, dropping names here, but yeah, he was my last guest on last year. So, of course, you know, we all looked up, we as in martial arts all looked up to Richard. He was in all the magazines here in Australia at the time, and pictures and posters and, you know, movie scenes. And geez, you know, watch that episode. He's just such a humble man and such a weapon as well. You know, he's in his late 60s, I think, or even
doesn't age. So, and I think the remedy is just train in martial arts and always be moving.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I mean, wait, you're what? You're 43. It's like you still look like you're in your 30s.
I turned 40 last month, so
okay.
You know, all good.
And you know, like, and you know what's funny is a lot of people think that like we were born martial artists, like, but you know the funny thing is we did team sports. You played basketball, I played hockey, and we can both say, like, I'm sure we watched The Last Dance and with Michael Jordan, and it doesn't matter where you were, if you could speak Russian, Japanese, Chinese, that's one of the best documentaries ever. Man, how much? Tell me, how many memories did you get from your basketball days? Like, just like watching that.
You know, basketball is in the early 80s, 90s in Australia. you know, you got to think of Australia at the minute. You know, we have 25 million people in Australia, right? It's nuts in the massive country, and we're all just around the edge of the island, you know. And in the 80s, I'm born in 81, so mid 80s, you know, Jordan comes into the scene in the NBA. My older brother was, you know, 7 years older than me, so he was, you know, 14 when I'm 7. So he's ahead of the curve as such for me as a young pup coming through to show me the ropes and beat me up and, you know, get me stronger in respect of the street smarts of sports, you know, and going to the primary schools up the road and just cracking on with some other lads, you know, down there. But what that led to was the era of, you know, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and then the basketball scene here in the late 80s, early 90s in Australia. After Australia came fourth in the 88 Olympics or it was 92 Olympic Games in Barcelona, that's when things went to another level, when Michael Jordan and the Dream Team came into it in 92, right? So I'm 11, brother's 18, and the scene just goes bananas. You know, you've got the hip hop scene here in Australia blossoming. You've got NBA basketball on TV now, not at midnight. It used to be on at midnight on one channel on a Friday night.
Whoa.
And now we've got it on main TV. And back in that late 80s, early 90s, there were 5 channels here in Australia. 2, 7, 9, 10, and SBS, something else. So we had AFL football on every weekend. And if you didn't get to go to a game, you would watch the replay of not your team, of just the game of the week. So a lot of us were playing outside and doing those activities outside and playing sport. And, you know, the scene of the Olympics and the NBA and Basketball Australia just took an absolute mammoth turn to be the 4th best basketball nation in the world in men. And then the female teams were starting to get better. And then, you know, I was in the same tournament in just basketball language when I was coming through in the national program as a junior. Lauren Jackson was in the same, you know, we were in the same vicinity. You know, the Victoria, the state boys were playing and the state girls were playing, but Lauren Jackson is now just being, you know, in a Hall of Fame in the WNBA and so on. So it went absolutely nuts. And, you know, so basketball, when the Last Dance came in, of course, man, you know, I was a Bulls fan. It didn't matter what was going on. But my brother, and in the scene that I was in, he was Detroit Pistons, Joe Dumas and Isaiah Thomas. So my pedigree in basketball, I love it. I love that angle because I can sneak it in on people and they go, whoa, shit, you know some of your stuff there. But I used to love Magic Johnson and his weapon shoes. And Larry Bird had a pair, and Bernard King, I think, had a pair. So those guys, I used to have those shoes. And so I used to mix it up. And then I used to have a Larry Bird jumper. So I just loved the sport. You know, the sport gave me so much. And again, you used the word earlier, the team angle I cannot take for granted now being in Kyokushin. It was what I needed as a kid for the respect of having teammates and so on. And then I needed to let go of it in my early 20s to do my own thing. Yeah. I'm 5'10", and when I was fortunate to go into the pros as a development player, and that means, hey, you're good enough, but you're on the bench, mate. You're over there. We've got 3-time Olympian, 2-time Olympians quite ahead of you in that. And I totally understood that. No. What I loved was that team environment. But then it was time for me to dabble with my own thing, and that's where Kyokushin gave me that angle, martial arts. But now in that circular cycle, that team etiquette, so we all have etiquette as martial artists, but as a team, you cannot succeed as a fighter, or you cannot develop yourself as a martial artist without good training partners, without a good dojo, you know, teacher coach, and without the culture of what sports teams have. And sometimes I haven't been, you know, I can't talk on behalf of other dojos because you can see the culture in other dojos all around the world. And that's come out in Australia because a lot of us played team sports, football, rugby, soccer, basketball, cricket. You know, we all had those team angles. And that's a big thing I bring into the dojo for the last, since I've been running my dojo for 10 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love what you said, how like the team aspect, because yes, I played hockey too. I coached it too. And, but then eventually, like, I just, I won my championships, it was fun, you get bored after a while. And, there's other things, you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Like at 24, like I knew I was done with, and I was getting into martial arts by then. So that's when
Yeah.
I really started. And with Kyokushin, like there are some schools that are bigger because they're more family oriented. It depends, but then you have the smaller ones, and that caters to everyone. That's what I like about martial arts, because there's no such thing as a one size fits all for a school. You could have one big school with like 300 students, and you could have one with like 30 students, but the 30 students could have a team of 5 killers on the Kumite team or the Kata team. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And here in Australia, again with the basketball angle, I was fortunate to be in that pros for a couple in the 4 year banner, and the 2000 Olympics was in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we had a strong squad, and I was not even 18, 19, but the guys I trained with were part of that team. And from that, you build amazing friendships. And because I was the rookie of those teams, I'm still friends with almost all of those players, and I haven't touched a basketball in 20 years. I stopped. I just peeled it off in a way. But my point to it was the relationship stayed. And don't they do the same in karate and martial arts? You should see when, you're Shihan or any other Shihan, we go into Japan, and there's just madness. There's usos everywhere. There's mates everywhere. They're all family. But in the basketball scene, I'll cherish that, because my best friends and my best mates played college basketball, Portland University, Oral Roberts, Metro State, Denver. All of us went everywhere. And I had a chance to go to Metro State, but I stayed. And I stayed in Melbourne to finish my accounting degree and continue my development with one of the national teams here. And in saying that, my best mates came back, and then they blossomed and they kicked ass, and they were pros for 100, 200 games. But then I was able to meet the likes of Joe Ingles, Paddy Mills, Matthew Dellavedova, and all these lads that were progressing through the ranks. And my coach in 2008 was the coach of the Australian Boomers, which then groomed Joe Ingles and Paddy Mills. So Joe and I became very, very good friends. And my best mate left to go back to America, and he was mentoring him. So then I was lucky to take the reins there with Joe. And Joe was a 17, 18-year-old kid. We were teaching him how to drive. That's how young he was. And with that, he would stay at my house for dinner. He would stay at my house for barbecues. He would stay at my house for parties and so on. And we groomed him. And then in 2008, there's a picture of me, my Shihan. We won the national titles here in Melbourne, and I won the middleweight division, and Joe was there. And in that afternoon, he had to fly out to Beijing to go to the Olympics. So, he's had a massive influence as well in me staying in the basketball scene, and what a success he's been, and Paddy and those boys at that time were 18, and now they're on 12 million, Australian a year or US a year, and absolute stars in the NBA. So, Joe and I talk daily, and we're not on a, hey, well done on your game. We're on a, how's the kids going? He's got 3 kids now. I've messaged him. He's messaged me. He's on a plane at 2 a.m. He's on a bus. He's on a hotel in Denver, wherever he is, and I don't even know. I joke to him and I go, hey mate, what's going on? He goes, I'm about to hit the court in 20 minutes. I'm like, oh shit, righto, don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later. And I just don't, and it's not to be a smart ass to him. It's just, I don't, we watch him succeed really well, but now he's a father of 3, and now he's in his early 30s, and he's got another Olympics. So this will be his 4th coming up, so there's a little bit of a chapter of the basketball over the last, bunch of years, in how I've angled it in for those that weren't aware.
Yeah, it's and like I think it's important you mention that because like we all start at different points of Kyokushin, and it's like you're a sensei, you're a sandan, I'm a green belt. I started at 24. I'm gonna be a black belt. The goal is by next year. Like it's like so that's it, but it's not a
Awesome.
bit. Yeah. Oh, so thanks, but it's about enjoying the process, and I think what we see is like a lot of people. It's like they really have to start to understand their why of they're doing this because I've seen too
Mm.
many people quit at yellow belt and they get to green belt and then they stop and it's like you got this far, why do you want to stop? Like you're almost there. So it's like, and I just wish like like I think we should like really.
We've lost a bit
Oh,
there.
okay, can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a bit
darn
unstable. That's all right.
Darn
So
Zoom,
keep going.
darn
Go for it.
technology. Yeah, no, just to reiterate,
Don't don't forget for listeners. He's on. I like to say we're on the top of the planet because it's daytime here. So we're on the top, and you're on the bottom of the planet. So it's still amazing that we're doing stuff like this and being able to talk to someone in Australia and someone in Canada. So if internet bothers people for 2 minutes or 2 seconds, just get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you find something else to do with your time, man. Like that's find something else to do with your time because life's too short to be mad at little things like this. But what I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to say is,
yeah,
with Kyokushin, I find what I'm
yeah.
seeing lately, a lot of people get to yellow belt or green belt and they
Uh huh.
stop after. It's like a
Yeah.
breaking point. And
Yep.
you think there needs to be a better way of explaining like to them maybe
Uh,
be about like look they say everybody wants to be the black belt, it looks nice, it's like aesthetically nice, but there needs to be more vetting in terms of why do
I
you
can.
want a black belt.
I'll share my angle on it.
Yeah.
Green is the hump. I call green the hump.
Hmm.
Green is the hump. It's a 3 odd year journey in our dojo in a way, to get to that green, 3 to 4 years, and you're in it. You're in it, and now you got to get over that hump because in my dojo and under our system here, you get to green, then we progress your next grading year upon year. So green to brown can be maybe 6 months, and then from green brown to brown can be another 6 months or a year, depending on it is. And then from brown to black, it's a year. And then from black tag to so from brown to black tag, it's a year. Black tag to black. So there's going to be another. So it ends up being nearly 7 to 8 years. Now, my reason in calling it the hump is, and why I hear where you're coming from, where people quit. That's what Kyokushin again. I'm going to use 2 words here. One side of it's commercial. Commercial meaning you need more students, we need to pay bills, and we need to run dojos, and we'd love all green belts to just breeze through. It ain't going to happen. There is a hump in that middle bit there where then everything starts to take its turn in regards to your age as well, respectfully, wherever you're in that timeline. Now, we use the word weed out. It just does it itself organically. It weeds itself out. It weeds the good. It'll take care of the ones that want to quit. Us, take care, boom. And they may venture and do whatever. Our policy is the door's always open. Whether it's, whether we were in respect of, how long it's taken you, that's the journey. Then the ones that tick over, they start to, and I call it, they're also like, Stranger Things, Drew, the
Yeah, the show.
Netflix series Strange Things. When there's the wall, right?
Yeah.
And then you look through the wall and then everything's upside down.
Yeah.
That concept? Yeah, that starts to look like Kyokushin when you get to brown, black. And then you're like, shit, I've got through that brown belt. And then you're starting to prepare for black. And then things start to get harder, stricter, more, and then two classes a week become 3 classes a week. And then you just poke your head through that wall a little bit to start seeing what black belt looks like. And it's like, holy shit, what's going on here? And what it is it's you starting back again. As they say, you're just a white belt in a black belt.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so some people don't want to go through that. And that's cool. And that's the beauty of martial arts and Kyokushin. If it was easy, everyone would be walking around with the greens and browns and black. And the more you talk to in the discipline of belts, judokas and BJJs, in respect of the other disciplines that have belts, man, you think, listen to the concept of what John Will and the BJJ boys have said to me. And they say, the blue belt, so the blue belt in BJJ can take you up to 2 years,
Yeah.
you do 3 sessions a week. It's legit. And they say they're legit dudes that can get you and lock you up. Now, the blue belt can beat anyone around the world. Anyone that's non-compliant in jiu-jitsu, a blue belt will fix you up, no sweat. And then they say the purple belt is to just beat the blue belt. You know what I mean? So to progress, it's just to beat the guy below. They'll dominate everyone else around the world. So to acknowledge that style, and their gradings are on a merit of, have a look at how Joe Rogan got his black belt showdown in BJJ. Have you seen the footage of Joe Rogan getting his black belt?
It was from 10th Planet.
Eddie Bravo just, and that motion there, in jits is really cool, how they do that. And sometimes in Kyokushin, you can't just go, well, I've never seen it traditionally, a Shihan going, bang, here's your black belt. No, man, we need you to crack on 7 hours. We want you to get through the ringer of the year. And then, week of, you've got an injury. Well, you can't do it. That pressure and intense, what's the word, a nervousness, we need to build that anxiety up, see if you can handle it. And then on the day, we want to see you get through 6 hours of intense everything, so if everyone was going to be passing, Drew, at green, shit, even acknowledging the era in 20 years ago when I started, a third Dan in Kyokushin was, whoa, hey, what's going on in Australia? And we had good pedigree with Hunchy Eddie Emin in 64, 65. And again, there's other names prior to him that brought Kyokushin to Australia. So we were lucky. We had Kyokushin in the late mid 60s, late 60s. And then to have Nidans and Sundans floating around, this was even in the 90s, was very rare to have. Anthony Perosh, who went to train with Carlos Machado for 2.5 years in 1997, 95, 97. He said he was the highest rank in Sydney as a blue belt. He was the highest rank in jiu-jitsu. So to slow that down a bit, jiu-jitsu, highest rank, blue belt in the capital, one of the capitals of Australia in 97, around then.
That's unheard of.
Now he's a fourth, and their Dans are different. But, John Will is a sixth in and so jiu-jitsu was mid-90s in Australia. So 25, 30 years, respectfully, right? So we've got a Hunchy with a 9th Dan here in Australia. There's two of them, Hunchy John Taylor, Hunchy Eddie Emin. There's a couple of Hunchies in New Zealand. Hunchy Doug Holloway was a guest of mine who trained with Sosoyama in 64 in Hombu as one of the first immigrant students. So, the belt system is, I like it at green. I like that hump because we all start to see who wants it. And if you don't want it, no sweat. Hurts commercially, no doubt. Hurts commercially, you want to keep, and they're all good people, right? But, watch jiu-jitsu, have a listen or read up on how jiu-jitsu angle their black. If you get your black, you get your black. And that's how we'd like to say it in Kyokushin as well. But I guess our timeline varies a lot differently to other styles. We got some 18-year-old kids that are ready for black. And then we've got, I graded 55, 58-year-old men that have been doing, one was doing Kyokushin when my master was doing Kyokushin. So he was doing it for 35 years and he finally got to Shodan. And I graded him in our dojo here and we pushed him hard, and then there's some that, in their late 50s, early 60s, they're not expected to do 40, 51-minute fights, rounds with 25, 35-year-old men and women and just crack on. We're testing them in other means as well. Hope that gives you an idea.
It does. No, like, and I think, and I like how it's kind of like the army where you really sniff out like who's going to stay. And I mean, my coach, by the way, my coach Mo really likes what you do. Like he's listened to your podcast and he's,
Internet again.
oh man. So I'll say it again. Yeah. So like I like what you said about the weeding out system. It's a very good system to see who's serious and who's not. And my coach is the same way, like the one that added you, Mohammed, like, and he's a big fan of your show, by the way. And also to touch on that,
Oh,
DJ
man.
Bernardo Barile, who's a big
Oh,
supporter.
he's a legend.
He's a green belt. But he's like so enthusiastic at his age in his 50s. Like this guy's got the energy of a 30-year-old. So he's no doubt going to be a showdown. Like he doesn't care. He just wants to enjoy the process. Like that's an example, like an adjective. If you really want to see an adjective, like you have to tell your students, listen, you want to quit now? Look at him. He's 56 and he's got a green belt. You think he's quitting? You think he's like,
yeah. And also that language, Drew, you know, like in having to justify to a green to stay, and not up in here. And I'm heavily involved with the SAS angle and the police and law enforcements, and they don't take they want creme de la creme, and so did Kyokushin back in the 80s and 90s and to this day, of course. So we maintain that.
Yeah.
Must.
Oh yeah. Another thing too I wanted to ask you is because with Australia martial arts, there's like guys like such as yourself. There's Slam and Sam Greco, Judd Reed. It's like Australia is like, we don't talk about it enough, and I wish we did, because that's what I do my show. Like I like hearing about the Russians. I like talking about the Japanese and the Iranians, but I like giving Australia the spotlight. And we had, and then Judd Reed just had his tournament. How did that go, by the way? The Young Lions tournament, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, it was Ronan 8, and look, Xian Judd and I have got a good relationship. I'm fortunate that he trained with my master, and he was a student under Hunchieti Emin, and we've all got our circles. And then with Judd, we were in the Australian team in Okinawa in 2008. He was in the heavyweight, I was middleweight. So had a good pedigree, good friendship for a long time. And then he ventured out and explored the world and lived in Thailand and did so on, and then came back to Australia maybe 3 years ago now, and has grown his academy, his dojo, from my dojo to his. It's about 35-40-minute drive.
Okay.
But he's on the other side of town. It's called. He's on the west. I'm on the east. So to get there, it's a drive. It's no problem. And that being said, he has then put his camps back into his timeline. So like he has mid-year camps that he's been running. He's not running it this year. We couldn't do it last year because of COVID. He's not doing it this year because of he's getting a hip. He's getting an operation. But what he's brought back in a way is his angle of, okay, we're doing this. Whoever's in is in, and we as a group, as our group under Xian Billy and so on, we support all groups as much as we can. And I was fortunate to come through that. What's the best word? That way of like, look, Pat, you can compete in Shin Kyokushin, IKO one, whatever tournament, and that was awesome, right? And we've opened that up, which leads to Xian Judd having his tournaments and allowing or selecting the top Australian fighters. Now, not all the top Australian fighters can make it from certain, So, for example, Brisbane or Queensland is a 2-hour, 3-hour flight down to Melbourne, and just timing on certain students may not be flexible in COVID and whatnot. But we were fortunate to do, it was fortunate to happen. And I say we because 3 of my fighters, I've got 3 heavyweight boys here in my dojo who are just monsters. And those 3 were fortunate to be selected in the 8-man eliminator. Give or take, a couple of others that couldn't make it. So we were fortunate to fill the card up with 3 of our guys, and it's an open weight. So what Xian's trying to do is he does 1 matches for the novices. So white belt up to green, he has a 1 match. So my dojo I had 4 or 5 fighters, and then we put them in the pool. And then Judd has a whole bunch of fighters, and another Xian and another Sensei has a bunch. And then we match their weight, their height, as such, their level and age in a way. And they have 1 matches, and bang, 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 next one, bang, 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 next one. So he has a tournament for that, which has about nearly 100 fights in a 3-hour bracket, just pumping them out. So it's not tournament, it's just one matches, which is fantastic because it gets people going. Then he has an elite event, which is called Ronin 8. And that's up on, there's some of the bouts are up on my social media page or on our Budo Kyokushin Karate Australia page, which is our group. And it was fantastic. This is the second or third one he's done. COVID restricted it last year. The year before that, he brought out a Japanese team with one of the Shihans, forgotten his name. He passed away, sadly, last year. But that Japanese team was the elite. They had world champions in there from all different groups, and they put on a beautiful show against our top 8 fighters and female fighters. We have had a lot to learn from it and take away from it. COVID happened last year. So now we've got these 8-man eliminators and just 80 kilo guys all the way up to 125 kilo, rhinos. I call him. One of our students is a Greek lad, Senpai Dean, and I call him the Mykonos Rhino because he just charges in. He didn't put his A game on. He got beaten by a really talented fighter called Senpai Samuel Shields out of Geelong, which is on the coast, surf coast here of Victoria. And then 2 of my students made the semi-final and had to compete against each other, unfortunately. So it was one of the toughest coaching moments of my early coaching career in martial arts because I teach both of them. And we've got our tactics, we've got our strategies, we all know our secrets. Well, I let them go at it here in the dojo, but I control it as the center referee. So I was like, look, no corner man. We all mutually agreed, no corner man. Just do what you do at the dojo. I'm going to sit in the middle of the ring at the end, and hopefully Shihan Judd and all the others, understand. And they thankfully did. They could have gone, "Oi, what are you doing? Get out of there." But I just sat in the middle and I just kept quiet and I gave positive reinforcements to both. I didn't say, do more of this, do more of that. I said, keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing. That's good. And I was just coaching both to the point where they drew. The judges in Shihan Judd's tournament are not on the corners. He's taken the corners away. They're now up the front. And what he's encouraging is for the fighters to, as we say here in Oz, to crack on. Just go for it. The referee can maintain. So there's no whistling. There's no interfering and distracting the fighters if it gets to the edge of the mat. If it gets to the edge of the mat, get them off. Just be careful, have a bit of duty of care, but get them off. There's no one stopping it. So our students draw. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to have to go again. And the winner is going to be a little bit banged up for the final, but I got to accept the fact that one of my guys is going to be in the final. And lo and behold, one of the students hits my other student 2 mawashis into the thigh, and he starts to buckle. And I'm like, oh, well, here we go. We're going to get a winner here. And then my student, Christian, who buckled, who just felt the leg kicks, comes out of nowhere. Jordan Mawashi knocks out his training partner. Knocks him out cold. He's on the ground. So we have mixed emotions. It was nuts. I'm like, holy shit, I can't cheer for this. And I can't be upset about this, but I've got a student that's just knocked out my other student. I got one student unconscious on the ground. I got another one that's made the final. So I was like, oh man, So we went to the back of the change rooms. We fixed his leg up as best we could. And Senpai Nathan Phillips, who is a part of our group as well. So we're a part of Zen Kyokushin under Hanshi Soshi Hazigawa and Shihan Takuma, who's a 3-time world champion under those world tournaments. And both of our students of our group, Zen Kyokushin, were in the final. Shihan Kancho Jimmy Phillips, who was trained as an uchideshi under Sosai in Japan for a couple of months. His son is now late 20s. He's 6'4". He has Kiwi heritage in him, and he's just got that big Maori type of body.
Oh boy!
And he took on my student Christian, who's a brown belt, and it's just a machine, up and coming young mid 20-year-old. And we went hell for leather, and we got pipped. We lost. My student lost in the end. But geez, it was unreal. So the event was such a success, a massive success. Some of those fights, if you need to watch them, message me and I'll send you those. They're on
I
a
have
certain
to.
Facebook page and so on. But yeah, so Xian Jud has got something really special here in Melbourne, and he does maybe two of them a year, which is fantastic for guys like us, people like me. I'm only 40 years old. I've got to teach the next generation. You know, in the next 5, you know, maybe more 4 or 5 more years of coaching, and then handball that baton over to another senpai to, you know, fulfill that angle, where then my job's going to be, you know, running the dojos, and I've got 2 dojos now. So,
Yeah.
and this is what I do. Yeah.
It's amazing. You know, speaking of martial arts, because you know we're both martial arts fans of like MMA and UFC K1. I was recently
Yeah.
watching. Do you follow Kancho Ichi on Instagram? Because he has an
Yeah.
Instagram page. My favorite video is where like they're talking to Japanese fans and they're like, "Who do you think's gonna win K1?" And like some of them are like in like broken English. They're like Andy Hug, Semi Shield, and then one of them is like, and then one of them I'll never forget, Slamming Sam Greco,
Yeah.
and that Sam is like, he's such a everyone thinks he's a brawler, but Sam is like a very smart fighter. Like he knows how to really
Yeah.
utilize his height. Like
So, Sam, yeah, very fortunate to be friends with Sensei Sam, and again, with respect of my Xian and him were competitors in their era here in Australia,
wow.
and with that, it came that friendship. And with Sam and I've had him on the shuffle, and he's shared some really cool stuff. And with that being said, Drew, he's a mix. He's a whole gamut. You know, he has done K1. He did Kyokushin. He was a 5-time Australian champion Kyokushin, and so on. Competed in world tournaments. Then left. Then did Seido. Then won a world Grand Prix in Seido. Then progressed into K1 and demolished. You know, he was in that chapter of all the elite guys. Came back to Australia. Did wrestling. Has done MMA. I think he was with Pride at that point, and he's been everywhere. Now I'm a whisker away of and again, I'm fortunate with my friendship with him that he gives me his time, and if I can catch it at any time, I get him. But he now coaches Jimmy Croot, who's an up and coming UFC champion to be, and Jimmy Croot fights pretty soon against Smith.
Yeah,
Alex,
Anthony Smith. Yeah,
yeah, man, a tough
big
dude.
test.
And Sensei Sam contacted me maybe a month ago and said, "Hey man, have we got any 6'4", 6'5" plus guys to come and help train with Jimmy?" Because he was meant to train fight Walker, a tall guy.
Johnny Walker. Yeah, I've seen him. I'm gonna tell you something. I saw Johnny Walker. He was in Montreal where I live. Unit. He's a unit, and he's like massive. Like I was like, wow. It's like it's one thing to see it on TV, but in person, you're like, oh my.
Yeah. So Jimmy Croot I like to recognize him, and respectfully, he's a bulldog. You know, he's just got a thick neck. He's strong as shit. And so Sam is coaching and angling his time with Jimmy Croot, and he does a lot of, again, another situation. Sam is half an hour away from here. He runs his own studio as such. He does one-on-ones with about 10 to 20 students, and they you know, get rewarded by, you know, his experience and knowledge. But I'm hoping to get him on my show again for the coach. Again, he's very, very difficult, but hopefully we can get him back on. But yeah, Sam Greco, if you see his trophy cabinet, holy moly, it's unbelievable.
He's my favorite K1 fighter. Like, you know, like I like Andy Hug. I respect Glaube and Francisco Fijo, but Sam has that personality that it's like he's a casual guy. Like he doesn't care. Like, you know, he doesn't have a care in the world. Like, but that's what I like about him. When it comes to MMA, there's a lot of superstars now. We have guys like Robert Whitaker, Izzy Adesanya, Dan Hooker. There's many more. What are your thoughts on those guys? Are these guys that you like watching and how they represent Australasia?
Yeah, well, that's the bit I was sharing with you earlier, which was Parosh, Dan Kelly, Elvis Sinisek. These are ex-Aussies there's a whole bunch. There's another couple of lads off the top of my head who have retired, had stopped fighting. They're in their mid-40s, who set the bar and set the way and opened the door for MMA, UFC here in Australia, which then allowed them now to coach and give the pathway to, legends and champions. Alex Volkanovski played rugby.
Yeah.
I think it was nearly 5 or 10 years ago, and started MMA 5 years ago. Rob Whittaker, similar, he had a Shotokan, or had a karate pedigree.
It's a Goju Ryu.
Wrestling.
It's a Goju Ryu, actually.
And then he does
I found out.
jiu-jitsu wrestling, and then he had to take on, what's the best word? That where the lead up to him being the champion. That's one of the hardest lead ups I've ever seen in UFC. Jacare Souza, Yael Romero, and then he had to beat a whole bunch of machines at that time to be the champion. Kelvin and all. I think he's got Kelvin next.
Yeah.
Alex Volkanovski had to knock off some champion dudes. And again, you're saying it very well. We're not getting enough of the kudos. And I guess that's the other angle that Aussies, and for those listening, we just go about our business. We're not, we've got 25 million people here. We've got, 3 massive sports that far outweigh, MMA, UFC. It was known, and I shared this with you last time, in 2017 was when Ronda and Holly Holm led the card here at Melbourne. That's only 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's not long. It's not long.
It was it was only legal to have a cage in Melbourne in that 2017. We were all competing in those MMA competitors were all in boxing rings. It was a farce, right? So it changed. So these Adesanya and these Anzac brothers of ours, they've unbelievable as well. And martial arts in New Zealand, I might have to squeeze in a guest for you, mate. I'll try and help you get someone in NZ and start building some of the knowledge that comes out of NZ. Ray Sifu, Mark Hunt, Adesanya, there is some, the Kyokushin in NZ is strong. And NZ, New Zealand has 6 million, I think. I might be wrong, 4 to 6 million. They've got some amazing pedigree of combat sports right up. And that's what's helped both parties. The Anzacs have been able to fly across the ditch, as we say, and we can compete in their tournaments and they can compete in ours. And, it feels like an international bout when we go in Kyokushin terms over there, and they're always here because they've already bashed each other over there. So they come over here. So I lost an Australian title to a New Zealand champion. So the New Zealand champion was the eventual Australian champion, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
we have, and I've lost I've won 2, lost 3 because of guests from overseas beating me. So I get furious about that. I'm like, a New Zealand guy beats me, and I had an Iranian champion come here who was studying and working here.
Oh my
and
God.
he was a gun, and he picked me, and I was like, man, So, but what I'm angling is the combat side of New Zealand and Oz just continued to grow, and it still does because we all accept each other's fighters.
I love it. And that's why too, I don't know what kind of, because for me, I listen to a lot of podcasts because MMA, you have to have satellite radio for it, but I listen to podcasts. So I really like what Submission Radio does in Australia. They represent the combat sports in Australia beautifully. And I just love it because, Australia has so much talent with the K1 history, Stan Longinidis, Ray Seppo, Longinidis.
Yeah.
Stand corrected.
Yeah. No, that's good. And he did well.
That's what I love. And when I do martial arts, I just want to try to really cover all angles. I try to not leave any stone unturned. I have my biases, don't get me wrong, because when you say just now, I fought an Iranian, any man who fights an Iranian, oh my God, Jesus, like
Yeah, yeah,
those
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's good
that's
fun.
like 300, man. It's like 300.
Yeah.
What was that like taking that power? Like it's different, isn't it?
You know, yeah. We were similar fighters. I was lucky. Same. It was in middleweight. But, you know, Stan Longanides, his academy, no word of a lie, is 50 or 100 meters down the road. And
Oh,
he has, it's called Stan the Man Academy. So I'm in Hammer's Gym. For those listening, have a look at Hammer's Gym online. And I've been personal friends with Mark Hammer Castanini, who owns this massive establishment. It's one of the biggest establishments in Southern Oz. And I have 120 squares of my dojo in here. And he used to do Kyokushin in the early 80s. So he always wanted a Kyokushin dojo / in his gym. So we were fortunate to do that, nearly 10 years ago. But Stan has his, and he's got kickboxing, Muay Thai, and so forth
yeah.
going on at his gym. And that's so we, again, in sharing what Drew's bringing up to everyone, we're all connected. We're all not far from each other, and we're all doing. We as in, I'm not putting myself in the same vernacular as Stan the Man, Sam Greco. No. I'm just, and Judd Reed. I'm not. No way, Jose. I'm just sharing the fortunate and respectful side of everyone has their thing, and everyone conducts themselves thus far, touch wood, professionally and with the utmost, respect in that way. We have been taught, and I've been taught in martial arts, respect all, no matter what. If you do, all good, all power. If you don't, you'll find out. You'll definitely find out. Respect all, fear none. That's a slogan that Hammers uses here with his students. And it's a massive poster that you walk in, and respect all, fear none. It's pretty special, isn't it?
It's so true. It's very true. Like I just mentioned, I love what I see coming out of Australia. I mean, you have Nazar, shout out to Nazar Kassab. I mean, like it's unfortunate, as mentioned, win or lose, I'm a fan of him. Like, and he's such a nice guy too. Like he's got, I always say, like, and whether you win or lose, as I said, win or lose, I'm still a fan because I like what he does. Like he's very approachable. He's the new generation, Pat. I like what I see from him. And then I'm sure there's others too coming up. Like you have heavyweights. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, you got to
internet. Yeah. So who else is there should I keep an eye out for other with Nasser? I want to expand my Rolodex of Australian talent.
Yeah, look, good call in trying to acknowledge that, and then where we're all at, and it's not an excuse, but everyone's starting to get better momentum with their events here in Australia. We have some fantastic promotions across all disciplines: MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, martial. There's a lot. Every week there's something happening. And everyone's starting to get back into it. Last year has been just an absolute, obviously write-off here in Australia. And we've started to get momentum. So slowly, to be honest, they will start to flourish and start to be seen a little bit more. In Kyokushin, it was I'm interviewing Nathan Phillips, who won the 8-man eliminator. He's probably someone that you might enjoy talking to because his father is a part of it. But I'll share more of that with you. But again, where the highlight and the time and the I guess the content comes about is currently with UFC and One Championship and
Bellator.
Bellator. So it's opened up different angles, and Coach Parosh was just telling me last week he has a handful that have potential for that, and there are multiple other coaches that have it. So Australia we have a very, very big spread of all martial arts. We're not just a Muay Thai kickboxing nation. We've got 11-time world champion Nathan Carnage Corbett, who lives in the US now, and we've got John Wayne Parr, who's actually, I think, in one championship soon, and he's going to have a crack. He's in his mid-40s. He just can't stop. He's just a weapon. And then you've got Jimmy Croot in the UFC. You've got Megan Anderson, who competed in the female title against Can you believe it? Amanda Nunez, she set foot in there. I mean, what the hell? And then we've got boxing pedigree coming out tonight. There's about Tim Zhu is fighting, Kostya Zhu's son. If you're into boxing, look out for this kid. And if he loses tonight, well, then delete it. But if he wins, keep it. But he's been fantastic. Horn beat competed with Manny Pacquiao 2-3 years ago here in Brisbane. What's all that? There's like 4 or 5 different things. And then you've got the passionate psychos like us that are Kyokushin full contact karate. And we have our event like a Judd who gets 1,000 people at his event, and it's got to be streamed on a Facebook or a YouTube. We're nowhere in that commercial language yet, but he had, what else? I'm trying to think of another combat. Again, the jiu-jitsu scene is huge here in Australia, and huge meaning across all things. The numbers in the jiu-jitsu gyms, unbelievable, because the cycle of those teachers, of their senseis, their professors and masters, they're now black second, third dance. So they're now been in the system let's not forget, jiu-jitsu in Australia, from the wise men that spoke to me, was in the mid-90s, 25 years, give or take. So now those gentlemen are in. So I'm 20 years in Kyokushin and a third dan. I'm 40. There must be 45, 50, some of those lads. And they're now got their own academies and gyms. And Jesus, they're going fantastic. And then they can spread it into competition or not competition. So you can have 60 on the mat. 10 of them compete, if that. Correct me if I'm wrong, any of the jiu-jitsu lads out there in Australia. But here in my dojo, I've got 20 adults and a mixture of 18 to 64, and 3 are in the brown and above full contact karate, and 4 are in the novice blue to green to, that bit. And that's the numbers. That's it. That's just from my dojo.
It's amazing. I love it. And I think that's what we'll conclude it. Always, so the motto is keep an open mind, respect all, fear none, but always keep an open mind first and foremost, no matter what. Even you like Kyokushin, okay, great. Expand. Look what to everyone that's going to watch and listen to this. Well, look at what Patrick and I do. We're having on different disciplines. We want to expand, because if we expand our knowledge, we get Kyokushin out there, and then we're raising the bar in our way, and people find out. So it's a trading of ideas.
Yeah, you're on the ball. You're on the ball. And mate, I appreciate your time again. Always, as I said to you right from the start. And one thing I respect from all the guests that I've had is them acknowledging we'll make the time, we'll get you, and no doubt, mate. So well done to you, and all the love to everyone up north in Canada and the US, and all your listeners.
Thank you. Where can people connect with you? Mention your platforms, because we got to keep it growing.
Well, the Kyokushin Shuffle podcast, Forever the Student ebook. I'm launching this week Kumite Fit, which is a fitness martial arts online training program. And simply put, it's for people that we'd love to train with you, Pat Sensei. I'd love to come to your dojo. Well, now you can. And now we're going to grow that. And that's 50 Australian dollars, one-off fee. I've got content building up there every month. I'll be adding it on. And then I've got another platform called Kumite Karate for kids and teens. And it's just showing them take Yoko, all the basic katas, all the basic kihon. And that's the same thing. Kids are saying, and kids and parents from different parts of the world are like, oh, one day we might get down there. Well, enough's enough. You can get down there. I'm launching that this week. Check my socials on that, and at Sensei Pat Pinto on Instagram, and you'll see all that. So I appreciate it, Drew. You're a legend, mate. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Pat. You too. Have a good one. Us.